What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show. As always, I like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. Know that I am the host of Epic Conversations, and the Dr. Vibe show is the place of epic conversations. Done over 2,000 of them over the last 10 years, and we just keep on going. Do note, you can also check me out as a certified empowerment coach, president and CEO of Express Your Vibe Coaching and Communications. And we have something new that's launching tonight, Monday evening, May 7th at 9:05 p.m. Well, we had a little bit of a delay, but we're good to go now. I'm not going to say what it is because there's a woman in red, or lady in red, who's going to be talking about it. I'm just fodder. I'm just along for the ride. She's driving the ship. But we're very blessed and highly favored to have Carol Bluestein and Melvin Lars here. And you know what? I'm going to just let Carol tell everybody what's happening. So Carol, roll.
Well, Melvin and I were on a conversation with the Goodman Project's group, social group, the Disposability of Men. And it came up that he had some friends that might be interested in talking with us about their football experience. And some of them were having some problems with CTE. So after the call was over, I called him and said, Melvin, do you think they'd be willing to come on the Dr. Vibe show? Because I think Dr. Vibe, from my conversations with you, Dr. Vibe, would be interested in getting out the word to help save lives. And that's what this is all about. It's to help stop suicides of men and women who are affected with CTE because they unknowingly played in contact sports, got repetitive hits or traumatic brain injuries, concussions, and had no idea what the result would be. And the result is basically pain, disorientation, and a loss of executive function, among other things. Melvin said, sure. So I started thinking, and I said, oh, Melvin said, sure. And I started thinking about maybe we could put a wrapper around Melvin's group. And I put it out to our other people who call in and asked if they would like to be a part of the series. And it filled up for 2 months within one email. I just said, here are the dates that are open. I got Cindy Feisel to come in. She's, after the cheering stops, her husband died when he was 45 from alcohol abuse, but it really was from the CTE. She had his brain checked. And it was devastating to her family because they didn't know what was happening. So she's coming on at the end of May. And I had Melvin and another person in, and the rest of the schedule filled up. And now I have more people that are going to be signing on for July. And if that fills up, we'll go to August. It's a way underreported problem. It affects children from the time they start playing football till out of high school because their bodies don't mature enough to take the stress from contact sports.
Okay.
So if we can save some lives and give some understanding of what families go through, we're hoping that kids will find, and Melvin's going to address this, kids are going to find alternative activities that give them all the skills they learn in football and contact sports and do it in a safe and competitive and rewarding manner. So we're all for kids having fun. We're just not for kids ruining their brains and not having a life, because that affects not only them, but their whole family.
Excellent. Well, Carol, great introduction to what's going to be happening over the next series of weeks. Can you give a little background about yourself, and then we'll switch it over to Melvin?
I am an author, and I've written books, and I was very appalled to learn that there was this whole thing about the disability of men. I'd never heard it until I joined the Good Men Project. I don't know where I was my whole life, but it never occurred to me. And then I heard about the commoditization of people, where we're used by many to be just pawns in the game of greed. And when I heard that this disregard for human life and human lives and the quality of lives was a part of this disposability thing, I became very involved in the group. And one of the things that we were talking about is the disposability of men, not only in war with PSD and all that, but in sports. And if you're in a dangerous situation and you get hurt, what do? They send the next guy in because it doesn't matter. And they want you to get back in the game as soon as possible so that there's not even an understanding that you've been hurt, may have hurt your brain or your body, because the sport takes over. Just as industry takes over when it comes to jobs. If industry closed down, jobs are gone. And there's no responsibility to the workers to make sure that they have something to go to. It's a problem. And this country is very lax because it's all about the bottom line and the profit and not about the people that make that happen.
Excellent. Well, Melvin, can you share a little bit about yourself and your wanting to be part of this conversation? And plus, you have some experience with it. So can you share with the audience for us?
Most certainly. Thank you for having me, Dr. Vibe. And I thank Carol for allowing me to be here with her. I am a writer as well. I'm an ex-educator. I also played football for quite some time. I'm a Golden Gloves boxer, by the way. And that's and as I started speaking with Carol and the group, I would sometimes, I don't know if you remember, but I would sometimes make statements, especially with things that people disagree, not the group, but people would disagree with me on things that seem so, can I use the words commonsensical? And then I would always use a sarcastic term and say, well, I must have taken too many hits in the head playing football because it seems very simple to me. And I did not realize at the time when I would make that sarcastic statement is that there were men, and I'm sure women, to actually suffering from having taken too many hits in the head playing contact sports. And I do want to say that and not be a hypocrite. As we talk about sports and the injuries, the research is sharing with us that it's not only football, it's hockey, even soccer with the head butting and things that goes with it. So my interest came about, and I was sharing with Carol, so please allow me to say this. I was sharing with Carol is that I was interested in the group. However, when I joined the conversation, it opened my eyes. It really did. Allow me to say, without patting myself on the back, I was one of those guys. Now, who's one of those guys? When you play football, especially, and you are a very physical player, players have a tendency not to want to see you coming. So I was one of those guys that they did not want to see coming. And I did exact quite a bit of punishment. I didn't think it was a big deal. We were playing football. It's all about the machismo. It's all about the mano y mano, that kind of thing. Even in boxing, when I was a young man, I was a Golden Gloves champion at 17. And I thought about many times you would hear situations where even in movies, they talk about the guy being punch drunk and everybody kind of made a joke about it. And honestly, I did not internalize and clearly understand that these men were getting their brains damaged due to the punches and the blows they were getting to the head. And it just opened my eyes. And I used to, quite honestly, I always talk about how concerned I am about health. I have a master's degree in health, the whole nine. And I would many times meet opposition from gentlemen that I coached with because I was very adamant about not allowing injured players to participate against their parents' will, against my fellow coaches' will, even against their will. And through all of that, Carol and Dr. Vibe, I never really heard much about CTE, and quite honestly, heard very little about it. And I started talking to the good. As a matter of fact, I was watching. You may remember Rodney Peete, who played with the Detroit Lions and some other teams. I think he played quarterback at USC. They did an episode where Rodney Peete has been diagnosed with CTE, and he was talking about how scary the situation. I mean, I'd seen this, and it still did not really register. It did not resonate. And as I'm listening to the conversation, and I hope Carol don't mind me saying this, as Carol was talking about the concern for her grandson, and really hoping that, if I might say, cooler heads would prevail and he would find something else to do rather than play football. It started me to thinking about the damage that's being caused. And of course, you have a lot of research out there to talk about a certain age group. And Carol and I'm sure we'll discuss that as well. They were talking about at least until the age of 14. And I spoke to some of the fellows about it, and, some pushback and not arguments, but some healthy discussions about the research, and some people saying 12 and some saying 14 and some saying it doesn't matter. So that is why I'm really interested in this. I'm vested. I do have some friends that have played years in the NFL, and one of them I haven't talked to very, how can I say, I haven't been very succinct in speaking with him, so I don't want to call his name. He may not want his information to be shared, but there's one gentleman that we're going to have on the show. We have talked about the CTE situation. There's another gentleman. So I shared with Carol in the group that I wanted to talk to some of my friends that played for a long stretch in the NFL. There are hundreds of thousands of us out here, Carol and Dr. Vibe, that were, quote, free agents, unquote, and nobody knows who we are. So if they hear Melvin Lars saying something, it's like, okay, yeah, you only played for a second. Nobody even knows you. So I wanted to talk to some of my friends with names. Billy White Shoes Johnson. I think everybody that follows football know who Billy White Shoes Johnson is. Larry Anderson has, I said 3, but I think he has 2 Super Bowl rings with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Name recognition, where they can go and Google and they see the extent these gentlemen played. They see how long they played. So I wanted to bring vision, if you will, to the health of these young men. And of course, I am not a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a neurosurgeon. I'm none of those things, but I am an advocate for healthy human beings.
Well put. Well put. Carol, Melvin mentioned that you were concerned about your grandson getting involved in playing football. Why were you so concerned?
He started at 14, and I had, I was aware of all the issues with CTE. I have friends who have lost children to CTE.
Wow.
And I didn't want to lose him to CTE. He could live a long life, or relatively long, if the CTE does not progress quickly. If it does, he could lose his life at 25.
So let me just interrupt. So does he have CTE?
No one knows yet, because they're aware. I'm aware of a blood test that can tell whether you have it or not.
Right.
But I don't know how accurate it is at this point, because it's brand new. So if that were the case, that'd be great, but you're still taking the chance. And even if the chance were low, 20%, 11%, you pick it. You're still taking a chance that repetitive hits are going to create the tau protein in the brain, which is going to start eating away. And once it does, it cannot be stopped. There are therapies to help people deal with it, but your brain is not. And of all the things you're going to losing your brain is probably not optimal.
Okay.
However, like other children in this country, he is enamored.
Wow.
Been watching it his whole life. He's a Buffalo Bills fan. He goes up every year to watch them play.
Right.
And that's all he wants to do. He doesn't want to know. It's his passion. He wants to grow up to be a football coach. So, I'm on the sidelines. I don't support it, but I still love him.
Sure.
But it hurts to know that possibility exists.
Mel,
it doesn't have to.
Yeah.
See, the point, it doesn't have to. You just don't play football, and you save your brain.
Melvin, during your career in athletics,
yes,
while you were playing, did
Yes.
you see examples of fellow athletes that may have suffered CTE?
Yes, but it wasn't called that.
Right.
It wasn't even known at the time because no one actually talks about CTE. And dare I say, embarrassingly, there were those of us, I don't think that I did, I won't say that I didn't, that would actually, quote, make fun of guys, because they get a little woozy, a little wobbly, or they could, not, quote, withstand their pounding and that kind of thing, because we were all ignorant to the fact that we possibly were doing serious and unreparable damage to our brains. And that's what, as I share with each of you, is I really, really, really went into deep thought after speaking with Carol and the other people on GMP, because and I took pride. I took pride in being that guy. I took pride in the fact that when we would go through these one-on-one drills, guys would try to make sure that they weren't in front of me. I took that as the macho guy, etc., not realizing that I possibly was causing brain damage. Well, I will say this to you, Dr. Vibe and Carol, very honestly, I was not aware of any medical term called CTE, but that's one thing that soured on my stomach about boxing. I did not have the stomach to just completely continue to beat on a man once he was down. I mean, and what I mean by down, even though he was standing, you could clearly see that the boxer was defeated. And the crowd is roaring and your coach is telling you, take him out, and I'm like, okay, man, the guy is done. Ring the bell and let's everybody go home. So I've always been sensitive to people's health while enjoying the sport without having the academic wherewithal to understand the ramifications that are presently associated with it, that people are, and obviously, Dr. Vibe, I'm sure it's being heavily debated. There's a lot of money involved. There is a lot of bravado involved. There is a lot of people living vicariously through their children involved, and people bragging about championships and things of that nature. And I do want to say, as I said to Carol, Carol, I would not be a hypocrite. I love the sport. I enjoy it. And as a matter of fact, I'm sure Billy Whiteshoes will not mind me using his name. He and I were having a conversation just this Saturday. And he was saying, well, Mel, he said, I've been reading the information. He said, and it's a lot of controversy. I said, yeah. He says, a lot of controversy about what the damages caused, et cetera. He said, and many times, he said, all of us know that we have to work with the young men and train them properly. And then as he was sharing that, as he finished, I said, Billy, but what we're talking about here is at least let them get old enough, let their bodies develop enough that where the chances are less likely, not that it won't happen, but the chances are less likely. And I did share with him that there was a push about at least the age of 14. And I said, but we are trying to compromise and say, well, maybe at least 12. But then, if Carol don't mind me sharing, there's a young lady, what's it, Arvie? Is that her name, Carol?
Debbie Pica.
Debbie Pica was talking about her son. Was it her son or her husband? I wasn't sure which. Yeah, her son that died from CTE. So, and I'll be, again, without being overly verbose here, it just made me think even more about it and count my blessings, because I played football, man, from, I didn't start until 8th grade. And I played from 8th grade all the way up into my mid-30s. When I was in and out of NFL camps and not making it, they would have these, minor league football leagues, and I played in all of those, and there was a lot of can I say combustion without fire. And so there was a lot of combustion without fire. And to answer you specifically, the other guys, they just couldn't do it anymore because their body and their mental status, they just could not handle the pounding and all of the rigors that went with it.
Yeah. It's even 14 could be young. It depends on the young man or the young woman and how their bodies have developed, because maybe they shouldn't even start till college, 17 or 18, because it just is an individual thing when you're ready. So football has known about CTE since 1908.
08, wow.
They have known that the damage from hitting that constant hitting a wall at 30 miles an hour practically with every practice, scrimmage and whatever, that it hurt people. People were damaged when they were done. Mm. As far back, I'm going 20 or 30 years, when Brian Gumbel did the first HBO special on football injuries after the game. And there were men who could not walk without assistance, who had been given up on by the football management because they were no longer playing, and management felt they were no longer responsible. That was 20, 30 years ago. It's not a secret. It's just that they don't want to publicize it because they don't want people not risking their lives for the money.
So Carol and Melvin, there's a number of conversation pieces I can bring up, but I'll start with Carol first. You have spoken to a lot of parents about this.
Yes.
What are you hearing from the parents when because most parents would probably think, oh, CTE, that's only for the pro athletes, etc. But when you bring it down to their level with their kids, what are they telling you?
They're saying, if I had only known, because they don't have their kid anymore. He's dead. Mm. That's terrifying. Debbie's going to come on and tell you her story. And she had a great kid, and he played football from early on, and he loved the game, and he went to college, and all of a sudden he couldn't operate in college.
Wow.
She saw the signs. He was a normal kid. The symptoms of CTE are what normal teenagers go through. They're just a little more exaggerated. They don't listen a little more or more vehemently. They take more risks than maybe they should. But if you don't think there's anything wrong with your child, you don't tend to take action because they're just being teenagers. So he went off to college, and then his brain started hurting. And after a couple of years, he knew it was something wrong with his brain, and he couldn't take it anymore, and he committed suicide.
Wow.
So if she had known about CTE, if she had listened to the series and stopped her child from playing earlier, she would still have a son. And that is the story I don't want any other mother to have to tell after listening to this.
Mother or father.
It's a terrible story.
Yeah.
And she doesn't watch football. I don't watch football. For me, watching contact sports is like watching people die. Not necessarily on the field, but they're hurting themselves to the extent that they're hurting their lives and their families. Because when you have CTE or traumatic brain injury, it's not just about you. It's about your family. They have to change everything to accommodate whatever therapies you have to go through. And it's just not a good thing.
Heard.
And there's nothing you can do about it, which makes it even more heartbreaking for a parent, I think.
Melvin, let me have you give your insight from players that you have played with or known of. How are they looking at the whole CTE thing? Do they say, you know what, maybe some of them have told you, I know this was going on for years, but I just never pursued it. There was no answer. Give us some insight from how some of the fellow players you played with are dealing with CTE.
Well, unfortunately, they were just like me. By that I mean, you never think about it. You never really hear anything about it. Your focus is playing football, becoming this alpha male, if you will, being dominant at the sport. And as I alluded to earlier, two of my very close buddies, one has agreed to be on to talk to you. I don't know how extensive he's going to go into CTE, or from what I understand, having some symptoms and issues with CTE, two of them that I know of. One, now Billy, and he and I are very blessed to not, as we know, have any symptoms. And his take may be a little bit different, but as far as me, I have spoken with these gentlemen and speak with them quite often. And and if you will allow me, as I share with you about those two gentlemen, just this football season, Rodney Harrison, former New England Patriot, knew Junior Seau, and they were very close. And he's still dealing with Junior Seau's taking of his life right this moment. And he talked about it publicly right before the Super Bowl again, which was only a few months ago. And he was talking about how he talks to his wife because he's very afraid that he may be affected. And he talks about his sons and not being able to rear them and working with them. And I also alluded to Rodney Pete. Rodney has a reality show. I'm not sure which night it comes on, but he and his wife, and they even show episodes when Rodney goes to the neurosurgeon and he's getting these treatments, and he talks about his fears and talks about he feared the day that he may become where he can't speak, or where individuals can't understand what he's saying. He has an autistic son, to add insult to injury, if you will. And he talks about not being there for his family. So Rodney Pete, I do not know personally. I do not know, excuse me, Rodney Harrison personally, but I was fortunate enough to listen to their misfortunes within the last 3 or 4 months. And my buddies, I'm fortunate enough to listen to their misfortunes up close and personal. And that's why it resonates even more loudly with me. And I want to be honest with Carol and you. You know, sometimes I'm torn, not because of trying to decide whether or not, I don't have a son, trying to decide whether or not if I let him play football, a la Brett Favre. If you listen to Brett Favre, he talks about his concussions just recently, and he wouldn't let his son, he's not going to let his son play. And he talks about all the concussions he had and how they were overlooked, and how sometimes he was not even aware, how he became addicted to pain pills and things of that nature. It's a very, very serious situation. And that's why I say again, is that I count myself very fortunate that I'm not having any symptoms of CTE. And Billy Johnson and I talked about this. Billy still coaches, by the way. He used to coach for the Atlanta Falcons after his playing days.
Okay, so
and
Melvin, I just want to interrupt you there. Billy is aware of CTE. Why is he coaching in a sport? People would be asking, why are you coaching or participating in a sport that has the potential of harming men's or players' lives for a long term? What would he say?
Excellent question.
Excellent
question.
Right.
When I'm glad you asked that so I could clarify this. When I contacted Billy to share with him what the Goodman Project was doing with the CTE, that's why I said earlier, he was pretty much like me. You know, you hear it, you don't hear it, you don't pay a lot of attention to it until it starts to get very close. So now, let me say very candidly that we've been having some healthy conversations about that, and Billy is saying, and he's going to speak for himself. He has told me that he's going back and forth as to whether or not he wants to denounce football right now because of all of the mixed quote reports that are out there. However, he does lament, just as I do, that the safety of the kids is very important. That there are things that they could do to get themselves ready to play at a later age, as we continue to get research indicating that the chances are much less of them getting CTE if they were to start at a maturation state for their bodies and for their heads, etc. Then, of course, Carol alluded to it already, is that we know that everyone doesn't mature at the same level. Everyone's body doesn't mature at the same level. So it really becomes a question, as I'm answering your question about Billy, is that like all of us, I say all of us, you hear CTE and many times when you say, okay, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, you never even hear that word. You just hear CTE. So it becomes, and I'm so happy you asked me that, Dr. Vibe.
I ask good questions once in a while. You know.
Listen, man, you asked the perfect question, because it's kind of like when you constantly hear something and maybe it's embedded in your head, but you do not put a lot of credence to it, might I say. So after a while, you kind of hear it and you dismiss it. And that's why I feel very comfortable sharing this as far as Billy, because we had some very in-depth conversation just about just that. He has a grandson that's playing, and unfortunately, I think the grandson has had 2 concussions. And Billy is very concerned. He's very concerned about that. And we have been having some discussions, and he's very uncomfortable. Let me go on record. He's very uncomfortable right now about the whole process. He, like many of us old football players, and all of us should just be very honest and put the cards on the table. It's kind of, okay, you kick my dog, I kick your cat. In other words, our conversation was built on the fact that let's not isolate football. Let's talk about hockey. Let's talk about soccer. Let's talk about all the other sports. So I can't speak for Billy, but I can share with you that's kind of what the conversation went. And I want to share that as you asking the question, how can he still coach being aware of CTE? As with being in the Good Men Project and being on the conversation with Carol and the other guys, that's what really started me to thinking. And I'm very candid with you about that. And then when I called Billy up, it was really kind of the same thing. I'll be very candid. He said, well, yeah, Mel, I've heard about it, but there's a lot of information. And he and I both were very casual with one another. Because there's a lot of information out there. Some are saying yay, some are saying nay. And but then I've been pressing him. I'll be honest. I've been pressing him.
Excellent. Carol, I know the main focus is on football during our conversation, but this is prevalent in other sports, correct?
Yes, it is. It's the hockey leagues are now talking about banning checking. In any sport where your forward motion is stopped for any reason, either by hitting someone or hitting a wall or bronc riding, for example, there is no safety helmet available that stops your brain from sloshing around in your skull when your skull is going in one direction. It's hitting the wall like let me see if I can do this. Like a car 30 miles an hour into a wall, or by doing something like this to it really kind of hard over and over and over again. So it can be the big concussion, which everybody knows and has seen, and not getting up and playing again, because there are many instances of players not remembering the rest of the game if they're thrown back in. And if they're students, they have to be reintroduced to school because the executive functions and their ability to remember and retain information is greatly reduced after a concussion. So there has to be a gradual reintroduction into school. It can take up to 6 months to a year and a half. Concussions are not fixed in a week.
Absolutely.
You can't have one day and play the next week. It just doesn't work that way. And if you don't take the time to heal then you have injury upon injury upon injury.
Okay. Well, and I just go ahead.
I think that coaches want to give their kids a great experience that they've had too. So I don't fault that, but there's other ways to give kids great experiences without damaging their lives.
So Carol, are you looking to see that rules change in a lot of these contact sports? And then the other part of this, and I'll get Melvin's take on it after, is this is going to make the game look drastically different. Like, one of the things I heard recently is the NFL is thinking about banning kickoffs, because apparently the kickoff play is the play where a lot more concussions happen than any other regular play in football. What will it take, you think, the leagues, well, let's just look at football. What is it going to take for NFL football really to take those next steps? There have been court cases, and I know there was settled one a little while ago, a few years ago, but the sport is still the same. It still looks the same. And before you answer, I just want to say thanks to everyone that's watching live. If you have any comments or questions, please put them in the chat room, and I will have both our panelists answer. So, yeah, Carol, what is it going to take, in your opinion, to make that change?
We know that youth sports leads into high school sports, leads into college, leads into the pros. So it's a gradual ascension of a player. If people don't, I don't know that kickoff is going to help very much. But I think the reason for kickoff is because players start at each end of the field and run towards each other, right?
Yeah.
So it's the longest distance they run before they stand to each other. Now, I'm guessing that's the reason they're picking that.
Melvin?
What's going to happen is if we don't provide the feeder leagues to the net, and people don't choose to play football, the game may disappear.
Yeah.
But it's not going to disappear because the owners think they shouldn't be killing people.
Okay. So, Melvin, what is your take? Or do you being involved in the sports arena,
yes.
what do you feel it's going to take to make a change when it comes to this subject?
Actually, before I answer that question, let me address what you asked about, Carol. You and Carol talking about the kickoff. The NFL just approved a change to the kickoff, agreeing that players could never be more than 15 yards away from the actual kicking of the ball and getting to the player, etc. So,
okay.
yes, they just passed that less than a week ago.
What's the distance?
Less than a week ago. So both of you are right on point. Now, getting to the other piece of this question, I think the three of us really know, without offending anyone, is you follow the money. And what's happening across the world, unfortunately, a lot of things are not killing people due to their participation. However, when we start talking about being combatants in football, because that's the lure, the gladiatorish, if I might use that word, the gladiatorish attitude involved in football is the drawing point. It's the lure. People like to do ooh and ah and that kind of thing. I was sharing with Carol in the group. I said, if you do a survey right now, the most popular things that are being sold is Madden football and the war games. All of the war games by our young boys. And many times the boys are not buying them. Their moms are buying them, by the way. But I don't want to dampen Carol's spirit. No. I don't see them. I don't see it going away. I see them continually making, quote, adjustments, unquote, to say to people that is safe. We all know, and Carol has already talked about as far as the brain and the sudden stop. We all know that the helmet protects the outer skull, if you will. It does not cushion the brain itself from the impact, but it does protect the skull, which no one talks about very much. So when we see people getting concussions, when we see people being knocked, what be termed being called knocked silly, and it doesn't resonate that the person that was knocked silly may have just been put in a position where he's lost his life, or he's lost his ability to think critically. He's lost his ability to be mobile. And then, of course, we know that the first thing we're going to get is, well, they knew the risk when they went out. So we know that. However, that still doesn't answer the question. What do we do to make it safer? And the only way you really can make that game safe is not to play it. I mean, hey, let's just say it right out. The only way you make that game safe is not to play it, because it is a contact game. It is about being a gladiator without the sword. You are applauded for your ability to knock someone down, to knock someone out, to make the crowd stand up and roar, to give people something to say, wow, did you see that? So that is just being very, very, very candid, Dr. Vibe and Carol, is that until those of us that get enjoyment from watching collisions, you're going to have people that are going to be extremely resistant, and you're going to have people, again, to be condescending and say, well, they knew the risk before they went out there. Well, it doesn't happen to everybody. And that's why I opened the statement by saying, being very honest, I consider myself extremely blessed of not having those issues as far as I know. So, but I do consider myself, I'm saddened by my two buddies that I know about. Now, that's just the ones that I know about. I don't know who else is having these issues.
Wow. So, Carol, I've got it up here, some of the people you have scheduled upcoming weeks. And I don't know how much you know about each one of them, but if you can give a little bit of background, if I give you the names, if you can give a little bit of a background on each one of them, so we can prepare our audience over the upcoming weeks on some of the...
Okay, I can try, but I would like to say that before we start that.
Yes.
Going along with what Melvin said, I think two things that are going to affect football is, one, we take the scholarship aspect out of it and offer free education in this country.
Wow, that's a hot potato subject right there.
Yes, it is.
I know. I just want to put it out there. I'm a hot potato.
I know that. I know that you don't. You're wearing the red tonight, so I expect nothing less.
And the second thing, which is which we're really going to have to work at as a country, is that we can't take advantage with the commoditization of our workers and make the Sunday afternoon in front of the TV the only relief they have after working a 6-hour week and overtime.
Well, I think
so we have to give people time to enjoy their life and not put it all on one day with a pizza and a beer.
Well, I think taking
those would be my two comments.
Taking it to another level too, Carol, the football players are employees of the owners in the league.
I know.
Yeah.
So
okay, so ask me now about my wonderful list of people coming.
Well, we've got some people coming up like Cindy Fizel. We have Kimberly Archie, Deborah. Okay, so you've mentioned Deborah.
Yes, one at a time.
Okay, all right. So let's go to our scheduled guest next week, Robert Rannigan.
Bob Rannigan is a wonderful guy. He was a football player. He sustained concussions, and he's going to tell you his story, which is amazing. And he realized one day, after he knocked a fellow football player out, that was not going to be his life.
Wow.
And he stopped time. And he's developed therapies to help other people with, because he has traumatic brain injury. And he has developed therapies to help other men and women deal with traumatic brain injury. And you're going to enjoy talking to him. And he has a lot to say. And because he's lived through it,
right,
he can shine a bit of hope for some people who are suffering, that there are things they can do to make their lives better.
Excellent. We're scheduled on May 21st, and this is it's called Melvin Star Lars Night with Billy White Shoes Johnson and Larry Anderson. You've mentioned about them previously in our conversation.
Yes, and they're going to encourage among their conversations. I'm hoping they're going to encourage kids to look to other sports before they start football to develop the skills they need.
So Carol, are you aiming this conversation for the young boys or the young men that are playing football? Are you also targeting men in general when it comes to playing football and contact sports?
I'm targeting anyone who makes the decision to play.
Okay, fair enough.
Because it could be the father who wants the kid to play. It could be like my grandson who couldn't be dissuaded because that was his thing. It could be moms that are looking, or moms or single parents that are looking to get their kids into college and they don't have the money other than a contact sport.
Right.
Because colleges pay more scholarship money for kids who are willing to risk their lives, right?
Absolutely.
So,
you have Cindy.
We're aiming at a range and hoping to open eyes for better decision making.
Okay. You also have Cindy Fizel.
She's the wife of a football player, Grant Fizel, who died of, I think, cirrhosis of the liver. I'm not sure.
Wow.
But it turned out that he had CTE. And what happens when you have and traumatic brain injury? And what happened was his brain was deteriorating and he was showing signs of behaviors that they didn't really know what it was. And so the whole family was thrown into a disarray, and he finally committed suicide through alcohol.
Wow.
And you're going to have to hear her story, as she is a passionate advocate for stopping people playing football, because she's lived through it. These people the people that are going to be talking have lived through it. And that's the key that you're going to find amazing, and different stories.
Okay.
Anyway.
We have Kimberly Archie.
She's been working with, is she Faces of CTE?
Yes, yes.
And she was started with this through cheerleading.
Oh.
Because if you miss.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Absolutely.
It's a very dangerous sport.
Very, very true.
She'll talk about her experiences, and she is extremely knowledgeable. She's done a lot of research. You're going to get a lot about what sports affect kids how.
Okay.
She's amazing.
You've mentioned Deborah Pica.
Debbie has had a very difficult because she did not know about CTE when her son died.
Wow.
And she had his brain tested at a time when they were not testing young men's teenage brains. They were mainly testing football player brains. And I think she went to Dr. Amalu up in I lost the name of it.
It's okay.
Mayo Clinic.
Yep.
And she started a program where if a child dies in their from any reason and has played a contact sport, she calls the family and asks them to donate their brain to research.
Wow.
And she goes down and she picks up the brain and takes it to the pathologist. She is an amazing woman. She has spearheaded talking to people in government and CTE Day down in Texas. She's extraordinary. You're going to find out a lot. And she and her family had to recover from the death of her son.
We also have Mary Seau, who is, I believe, the sister of Junior Seau.
She is. And they have a foundation, again, to help kids and families and get the word out. They just had a luncheon in California, which Good Men Project, Lisa Hickey was at.
And then Karen Kinzel.
She's CTE or
Stop CTE. Her episode is Stop CTE.
So she is very involved in that organization, and she's trying to get the CDC to change their protocols and to start tracking people who have CTE, because we have 1 million kids playing football every year. That's a lot of kids.
Yeah.
And that means there's a lot of injuries. And we need to know we need to get the statistics out there, because we're not going to prove it any other way. Because as each family loses a child or a husband, it doesn't make the same impact as when you say, we've lost 1,000 people this year to CTE.
I want to bring Melvin back into this conversation, and as you've been sharing, and thank you for going through the list of scheduled individuals coming on over the next few weeks. Melvin, as you and I know, and many people know, for a lot of men of color, young men of color, and I think you know where I'm going with this, but I'll follow it through.
Please.
In many cases, the only way they can improve or get out of their social economic environments is through activities such as football, getting a scholarship, etc.
Yeah, and the armed forces, let me add.
And armed forces, true. There's a high concentration of. If these things that you're looking for, Carol's looking for, get pushed through, what alternatives do they have?
Well, that is one of the things that and I'll be brief with this. One of the things that we're going to talk about on 21st, Billy and Lars and myself, about strategies of becoming a superstar, of other sports they can be involved in, other things they can be involved in, like physical therapy. Excuse me, being, believe it or not, they may not believe they can, being doctors or being attorneys, finding other things in their lives. And please allow me to say that as you ask that question, I used to run a football camp with other NFL players, and our camp was football and life skills. And we questioned all of the camps in the country, and I'm going on record even in 2018, they started to build, and I'm going on record again, I hope I don't get sued. No one was talking about life skills until I started doing it in 1995. But we would bring the kids in that had to stay with us a week. We'd have attorneys in, we'd have doctors in, we'd have service industry people in, the entire nine, and they actually had to be drilled on life skills, and that would happen at least 6 hours a day. They'd get football the last 2 hours a day. So there are so many life skills out there that kids can do, and being a poet, I wrote a poem called "What Do You Do When the Crowd Stops Cheering?" That poem, when you look at the date, that poem was written probably about 20 years ago, for the very reason that you asked the question. Because I saw, as being a minority male, you probably couldn't tell that, Dr. Vibe and Carol, just looking at me, but being a minority male, please allow me very briefly to give my mother some credit, because she wasn't impressed at all whether or not people thought I was good at football. I mean, she made it clear before I even knew what football was. You go to school, you sit down, you get your lesson. the entire nine. And I'm from a single parent home, by the way. You know, people like to make excuses about that, but that's another show. So we have to push education from the very beginning. And please allow me to say, Dr. Vibe, I have no tolerance for the word student athlete. If people look up the history, it started because of an insurance settlement of someone not wanting to pay. Had nothing to do with the academic prowess of a person that was involved in sports. Second thing is, we too often make excuses for individuals not educating our young men and our young ladies by saying things, well, you know, they shouldn't be able to participate in sports if they can't read. Well, where were you when they were 2? Where were you when they were 5? Where were you when they were 10? So when I get on, when you ask me that question, man, you prick a nerve, because our unfortunately, when we start talking about economics and trying to grow ourselves, it appears that the only thing that's available to most minorities, and Carol alluded to the military and sports. I mean, that, and it goes much further than it being stereotypical. It actually happens in so many mediums. So we have to change the entire dynamic of what is offered. We have to change the entire dynamic of what they are or led to believe and led to think. You know, we have to change the mindset. And please, the last thing I'll say about this, Dr. Vibe, being an educator, I was one of those Joe Clark educators, if you will. We had different demeanors. And I've turned, not me, but people that work with me, students, we've turned 3 schools around. My principal, who's my mentor, has a movie called The George McKenna Story, and they wanted it to sell more. So Denzel Washington played his part, and they named the movie Hard Lessons with Denzel's face on the cover. So I have a long history, and this is not about me, but I just wanted to share. I'm happy you asked that question again, man. You've been on the ball tonight. It's because our kids, you've been on it, brother. You've been on it.
I've had a good night.
Our communities, our neighborhoods are inundated with the thought and the idea that if you want to be financially plausible, you have to be a rapper, you have to be some form of an entertainer, be it sports, be it being an R&B singer, be it a dancer. And for some reason, the academic piece seems to elude us, albeit we have all kinds of history that talk about the academic prowess of, quote, minority people, unquote. But for some reason, not only do we hear it pushed, we allow it to be pushed. And that's going to be a very tough act to sell to get our young men and the moms and the brothers and sisters and cousins to understand that we're talking about saving a life. We're not trying to keep him from becoming a millionaire.
Yes.
Okay.
We've talked about this, Melvin and I, on
Yes.
our calls. So I'm in total agreement. It's not a black, excuse the expression, it's not a black and white issue. There are many shades to this, and we need to, and it's a societal problem that
Yes.
we've been talking about it. So there's lots of work to be done. This is one piece. And if we can start saving some lives now, we'll save more down the road as we get smarter, hopefully.
Excellent.
Hopefully.
Well, we've got to wind it down. We've come to the end of another epic conversation. Just want to get some closing thoughts from Melvin first, and then Carol.
Well, my thoughts are, I would sincerely hope, I would implore individuals to educate themselves on CTE. All of us understand very clearly that to hear someone say something about it and to get information on your own where you can actually get into it and sink your teeth into it, it becomes much more clearly. And as we close this, that's what I'm saying. I'm very guilty of that. And when you ask me the question about Billy, man, you're going to have to make Billy shoot me. When you asked me the question about Billy, we were very honest with one another. When you hear something, it just doesn't sink in as deeply as when you actually start to research and look at the information for yourself. And that's really I think I should end with that, is that we need to look into it for ourselves and really understand what's going on.
No problem. How can people get in touch with you, Melvin?
I would prefer they use my website is www.dyingonmyfeet.com. All of my social media contacts are there on the website, and they can just click it, and it'll take them right to my Twitter, right to my Facebook, right to everything. It's all right there and convenient for them. www.dyingonmyfeet.com.
Excellent. And closing thoughts from Carol and contact information.
You can contact me at carolbluestein.com, and I think you can get to my social media there, but you can definitely, and you can contact me on Facebook at Carol Bluestein.
Excellent.
And the Good Men Project. If you Google Good Men Project Carol Bluestein, you can get my articles.
Fantastic organization. Fantastic organization. Good Men Project.
This series is kind of an answer to what Melvin said. Getting people to take a listen, find out information, find out what families have gone through so that you can make a better decision for you and your family. We don't want our kids to die. We don't want them to have brain trauma or live with it. And anything we can do to make those changes, even if they're small, I'll go for small, but as long as they keep multiplying, I think we'll have healthier kids and a healthier society, because we do have to address all the issues that impact us.
Excellent.
And thank you, Dr. Vibe, for
being
our moderator and for being a proponent of the series and helping the community out with your largesse. I can't thank you enough for myself, Melvin, and the Good Men Project, and all the people that will be here speaking with you. You're amazing.
Well, we're all amazing. We just got to live our truth.
That's right.
Just want to shout out some people. Dr. Tachi has joined in. She came in late. She says she can't wait for the replay. Also, Maya Ball, and I hope I am pronouncing your name correctly.
Yes,
if not,
Maya, yeah.
Yes, so she says, thanks for the great podcast, Dr. Vibe, Carol, and Melvin, and thanks for bringing awareness to a very important subject. Great job for Carol. Great job for organizing as well, Carol. So Carol's got a fan club. There you go.
I didn't do it alone.
There you go.
I'm one of them, Dr. Vibe.
There you go.
I am one of her fans.
There you go. Well, do know, people who are watching, you can watch this on the replay. This will be an ongoing conversation right now till June 25th. So just put in your calendar from now if this is an area that you want to know more about, and hearing from people who have lived the story of CTE. Just put it in your calendar, 9 p.m. Eastern Time from now till June 25th. And the way that Carol's going, she's going to book me all through the rest of the summer, the way she's on the move. To just
I am. I'm going to get you some people who study this and give you the newest research on it also.
There you go. So, see, Carol.
Can I say hello to Maya and Dr. Tachi? Can I say hello to both of them?
There you go.
There he goes.
Yes, thank you so much, everybody, for joining in live. I won't spend a lot of time because I'm sharing this wonderful, epic conversation with these two wonderful individuals and the Good Men Project. So I'm going to keep it short. I'd like to say first thank you to the GMP for thinking about me in regards to this incredible journey. Dr. Tachi says, hey, hello, Melvin, back. Thank you especially to Lisa Hickey. There's so many other people, Wilhelm. There's so many other individuals at the GMP, but thank you so much. You can catch me on the GMP. I have a new epic conversation posted there every Tuesday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and that's the Good Men Project, thegoodmenproject.com. That's the way it is, and it's the conversation that no one else is having. So there you go. I will leave with my usual last three things. Oh, and Maya says hello, Melvin, too. Melvin, you got a fan club, too, going on. All right. Maybe I should just hand over the hosting duties to you two, and I just can stay away.
No. You do a fantastic job.
Thank you.
You need to do just what you're doing.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir and lady.
And Maya is helping us with the publicity for this series. So she's very involved. And thank you for watching.
Maya, definitely, I would love to get in touch with you if Boss C, as I call her, lets me. Yes. So last 3 things. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Next up, sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. And especially when it comes to a subject like this, block assumptions.
That's right.
God bless. Peace be well. Keep the faith. And we will catch you next Monday evening, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. You, me, and CTE. God bless. Peace be well, and keep the faith.